Hey, what's up you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to what I believe is the second to last batch of Inktober, which is pretty insane to think about. So first up we have day 26, and the prompt combo for today was pretty adorable, but also reaching the result of the illustration that we had was kind of an adventure, so let me take you on that. I remember when I first saw Snake and Hat, I couldn't get the image of like those snakes on Twitter and Tumblr where people put tiny little hats on their pet snakes, and it's just super adorable. I love it so much. So I tried to emulate that to some extent. I did kind of like a side-ish profile of a snake with a little hat, and as you can see, that is sort of what I ended up going with, but as I was sketching it initially, it definitely was not working right, so I tried to sort of change my approach, and I moved on to a character that I felt was like sort of villainy, with of course snake-like attributes, but I didn't get past the first outline of the head and eye before I realized that no, that's just Orochimaru. So I decided to change my approach once again, and just made the eyes a bit more of a cross between human and snake rather than fully snake, and of course dropped the snaky eyeliner as well. And to bring in more of the hat, but also more of the snake, because the character was looking pretty humanish at the time, I decided to do one of those gold headbands that wrap around your head and make it look like a bit of a snake. And then I started drawing his hair and realized he was really looking a bit like someone that I already knew, and that someone was our sweet baby boy Crowley. So patrons are going to understand what I'm talking about right now, but essentially I got the idea to draw Crowley, and then I was like, well, I can't draw Crowley without drawing Aziraphale. So I had this like super cute, like very cuddly looking illustration of Aziraphale and Crowley, like classic ineffable husband kind of thing. And then the day before it came to do this illustration, I decided I didn't want to use it. And that is because both of them were in profile. Crowley wasn't quite looking like Crowley, and Aziraphale had kind of like a squished up little munchkin face, and it just wasn't, it didn't look like them, it didn't look the best, but again, if you're a patron, you've already seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So very last minute, I was like, okay, we gotta switch this up because I can't be doing this. Like, we're getting towards the end of Inktober. I want everything to be as cutesy and just like as good as I possibly can make the next few days. So instead I decided to Google a couple of images of like cartoony looking snakes because I figured maybe if I tried a little bit more of that, it would help. So I found like a cute little chubby doodle of a snake, and I kind of tried to reference that as well as this other image of a snake in a little witch hat, and obviously we ended up on the one that we have here. So as you can see, again, we have decided to go with Posca markers, and that is because usually for simple illustrations lately that I know I don't really want to do a ton of like shading and line work with, I've been going straight for my Posca markers. And at first I was like, yes, this is really perfect, this is gonna go super fast. I'm so excited because on the tummy where it is pink, it was just so smooth, and then it decided to stop being as smooth, and then it just kind of kept doing that for every other marker except for really the hat. I just was really struggling with keeping the paint flowing consistently, so we have a lot of places on the illustration where the paint is either like flaking off the paper or is just very chunky in general, and from a distance, as I'm looking at it right now, it's very adorable, but if you get up close you can definitely tell there's quite a bit of texture on that paper, so that was something that I did not enjoy. Also, using Poscas kind of meant that I lost the tiny bit of detail that I did want to do. Initially, as you guys saw in the sketch, I had some lines on the stomach, but because Poscas have such a limited color selection, it was really hard for me to pick a color that I felt complemented that pink very well. It's a very specific shade of pink. It's like kind of a cool tone pink, to be honest. And all of the pinks that I have are obviously this pastel pink, that neon pink, and that salmon color. And while the salmon color does look nice to shade the pink in like normal circumstances, like on the boba and the ghost that we did, it just was really looking a little bit odd when I tried to do some test swatches, so I decided to go against that and just leave it stomach flat pink because I figured you can still kind of get the general idea of what I was going for across, I guess. Another thing that I really struggled with was the face. So obviously, I've not really drawn snakes before, so deciding how to fill in its face was a little bit awkward because I remembered, oh, if you look at a snake from the front, sort of towards its mouth and its like chin area, it's a little bit lighter. So I did go in that with a pastel pinkish color and immediately decided to cover it up once I had it finished because I did not like how it looked. It was super weird. And covering that up was really quite the process. It really didn't want to like layer at all, which was interesting. Because I layer Poscas all the time. In fact, in several of the color studies that I did for the milk carton, I colored over certain colors that I decided I didn't like anymore, and I've never really had too much of an issue with it, but it just did not want to layer on top of it. It was really quite the task to get that covered up. So that led to, again, more of that chunkiness, but overall, I do like how he turned out. I think he definitely needs the digital treatment as well. Maybe give him some soft, subtle shading and bring back kind of that line work. I also kind of wanted to put a pattern on him, but I couldn't really figure out what exactly to do. There's like, I don't know how to describe it because they're not scales, but they're like little patches of color. I don't know. They're a pattern. Or if I wanted to do stripes or something like that, but I ended up just leaving it flat because one, I was on a time crunch today, and two, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, and Poscas are kind of, you can see that they're both forgiving and unforgiving, so I just ended up leaving it flat, and I like how he turned out, but I do want to bring some of those elements back in it again. So here is day 26. So next up we have day 27, of course, and our prompts for this day were Celestial and Orchard. And it had me feeling kind of blank at first because I definitely did not want to draw an entire orchard. You guys know that backgrounds are not necessarily my strong suit, especially with how some of my materials have been behaving lately. So I really didn't want to do something that was going to be super detailed, especially because we are reaching towards the end of Inktober. It's day 27. There's like 4 days left. So I was feeling kind of exhausted and fed up with Inktober at this point. I was ready to do some personal work because while technically Inktober could be considered personal work, I guess, because they're not like commissions or anything like that, it's also technically not personal work because it is pretty much exclusively for YouTube and Instagram. And while some of these illustrations I really had fun working on, of course others like this Celestial Orchard were a bit too challenging, I think, for what I had set myself up for, I think. So I was just kind of struggling by this point. So I decided to do something very, very simple, and I was like, okay, orchard. What do I think of when I see orchard? And for me, that is apple picking. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I make apple picking celestial? Have like a goddess type character picking apples, I guess. And so that is where this character sort of came to be formed. There's not really too much to suggest that this character is a goddess. It's definitely, again, one of the very, very simple illustrations. I've had a lot of like magic equals metallic watercolors, so like it's usually just like something floating, something metallic watercolor, it's magic now. And that's sort of what I did. I just drew like a goddess type character who's like using magic, I guess, to pick apples. So, it again, there's not really much to suggest that she's a goddess. I don't know what it is about my brain. As soon as I hear goddess, I'm like gold leaf headpiece crown toga. I don't know if that's like middle school, like super into Greek mythology me that's like, yep, goddess means toga or whatever this white uh dress sort of piece is, and gold, of course. I forgot until I did this voiceover that I meant to add some gold to her dress as well. Um, so that's kind of annoying, but basically, to me, goddess character means gold accents and white and big flowy dress, I guess. So that's kind of how this illustration came to be. I also decided to use watercolor for this illustration because it was so simple that I didn't really want to do Copics, especially because around her face and stuff was just so small. And while obviously it is possible to work with Copics on a small scale, and it is what I normally do, I figured it'd be faster and a little more satisfying to try to push myself to use watercolor again and just work with flats and like semi-blending. And by blending, I mean more like fading out certain colors. And it went kind of okay. I do like all of the colors that I mixed for this illustration. In fact, her hair, while it didn't come out like super perfect, I was super excited about the fact that I finally mixed a freaking brown. So I don't know why it took me for all of Inktober and all of my history ever of ever using watercolor. Red and green make brown. So basically what I've been doing for all of Inktober, my watercolor set already has a pre-made brown in it, but it is something that is just it's not the best brown. It's definitely very yellow toned. It's also it's like yellow and desaturated at the same time. And it's also just not very pigmented. It is kind of like the least pigmented watercolor in the entire set, which is very annoying because usually if you're going to be using brown, you want it to be very nice and rich and pretty. And it's not. So, for all of Inktober, I have been trying to take that brown and mix in like red and purple to make brown, but red and purple and brown just makes reddish purple and not brown. It doesn't deepen the color at all. But that's what I've been doing for the entirety of Inktober until today. I was mixing it and I mixed up the colors and I was like, it's looking a little too red right now. And then freaking art scholar brain me was like, hey dummy, add some green to that. It will make it less red. And so I did that and I was like, it's the perfect brown. I finally done it. And I did a little swatch on a test piece of paper, and it was much darker than in the actual illustration, but I thought it turned out really, really nice. And while it did come out sort of like a little bit more pastel on her hair, I don't hate it. It still is very brown. It's not that nasty yellow color that I have been working with all month, so I was very proud of myself for that. I also tried to deepen it a little bit for her shoes, and it did come out a little bit too purple, but I still think it has like a little bit of a nice contrast. Also, again, I did go a little bit crazy with the metallic watercolors. I colored her entire dress to be like that white pearlescent sort of color, and then did the little magic-y spirals around both of the apples. I don't know if it's kind of clear, but her like apple basket's supposed to be magic too, so like the apples are just like kind of suspended in there and it's just like one apple, but it's actually like a lot of apples, but it just looks like one apples because, you know, safe space, less annoying to carry around like 5 bajillion apples, and if you're a goddess you can do whatever you want with all those apples. So I don't know. I think this illustration definitely could have used a background, despite me saying again and again I didn't want to do a background. It just something about it seems so plain to me. When you look at it from up close, it's not that bad because you can look at all the details in like her hair and her face, and stuff like that. But when you look at it from far away, it's like, God, that illustration is so empty, huh? So it didn't appeal to me too much. I definitely think I could have done some more with it, but overall, I don't hate it. It's definitely probably my least favorite from this whole Inktober. But as always, it could have been so much worse. So I'm grateful for that at the very least. So I want to say one more thing about it, but I genuinely cannot think of what I was going to say. So there we go. Here is day 27, day 27. Okay, so here is today's illustration. Obviously, we're finally caught up. It is day 28. And oh, before we get into it, because I initially had planned to do everything every single day, I had a little birthday thing put together for my mom, but now that video is going to be going up after her birthday, but today is the day before her birthday. So if you want to wish my mom a happy birthday, she also has an Instagram and a YouTube channel, but she hasn't posted on it yet. So if you want to go tell my mom happy birthday, her Instagram, I will like put it on screen, but it's Say No to Bad Health. And yeah, it's her birthday, so if that's something you want to do, tell my mom happy birthday. I'm sure it'll make her day. So yeah, anyways, getting into, oh, and it is tomorrow. I think I said it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow is her birthday, but if you want to wish her an early birthday, you can do that. Now I'm done rambling. So today is day 28, and it's one of my favorite illustrations that I've done for this entirety of Inktober, which I was really shocked by because I wasn't expecting it to like it, or I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, because I didn't really like the initial sketch. I didn't hate it. It was like one of the ones where I was like, I'm kind of excited to work on this one, but I didn't expect it to just like win me over so much once I started illustrating it. But obviously, today's prompts were Firefly and Bloom, and at first I had literally no ideas at all. I was like, Firefly, but their little light butts are flowers. And that didn't sound very interesting at all. I'm sure all of you heard that and were like, what? No, that's not cute. So I was kind of struggling until I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, fireflies don't have to be like such an obvious element, you know? They're so they're small, they're tiny, they are just sort of like more like an accompanying element. And I started thinking about Breath of the Wild and how they have fireflies. I believe they're called like sunset fireflies or something. They're so cute. And so I kind of thought about, you know, like fireflies in the forest, and I started to focus a little bit more on the bloom after that. So bloom, I tried to argue could be like fungi, like mushrooms, but I didn't like that idea. I didn't really know how to make it interesting other than just like, oh, mushroom with fireflies. No. So I thought of flowers, and obviously one of my favorite flowers is peonies. I've talked about it all the time. I want to get a tattoo of peonies. I think they're so gorgeous. So I decided to do something kind of spooky that almost reminded me a little bit of like Hana Haki. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like an urban legend, I guess, in Japan, or something like a myth, something like that, where like a person can like develop like flowers growing through their body and eventually like from their lungs like up towards their like esophagus and then like out, and you get really sick, but it's essentially because of like unrequited love, I guess. So it causes you to develop that, and it can be fatal because, you know, you're not really supposed to have stuff like that in your lungs or in your throat. So yeah, so I thought it would be really fun to do something sort of similar, but instead I had it coming out of her eye rather than her mouth, just because, I don't know, I thought it would be visually interesting, and it did sort of turn out to be. So I was really impressed by the peony that I drew, because flowers are hard, but I found a tutorial. I wish I remembered the name, but basically if you Google like how to draw peonies, her blog post comes up with a tutorial, and it's very helpful. So I drew that little peony, and I love doing all the little tiny lines. It was super fun and super satisfying to illustrate. So that's how that turned out. And then obviously I was gonna have her crying, because I imagine she'd be in a little bit of pain if a flower just sort of like sprouted out of your eyeball. So I kind of messed a little bit with like the water and the transparency of that, and I was kind of figuring out like how blue do I want to make it. And I ended up going with like a sort of like pastel-y-ish blue and then a little bit of a darker blue to sort of add some depth to the water, even though it's like tears, they're not that deep. But I really wanted to play with it and make it sort of colorful. And I did the same thing with the flower eye with the blood. The blood was super fun to draw. I don't think it came together until I added the colored pencil, which was really interesting to me. I figured if I added, like a light red and then a dark red and then a deeper red, that it would work, and it would look as if it had like some sort of viscosity to it, but it just wasn't like looking quite like blood. It didn't look like it had depth on either her face or in and of itself. And then I added the colored pencil and I was like, whoa, that like super transformed that, so that was really fun. I also really loved doing the blush and her lips. It just came out so pink. I really wanted it to look like super flushed, as if she was like, really crying and had been crying for like some time, to the point where it would redden her face, and not just be like an ooh blush kind of thing, but like a genuine, like, her face is flushed, she's in pain, she's been crying, her face is irritated kind of thing. And I think it really turned out that way, so I was really super happy about that. And then it really started coming together when I did her hair. I was like actually shocked. That's the moment when it took me, I think, kind of from like, okay, I'm kind of feeling this, to wow, I really love how this turned out. I'm sorry if I'm like peeking the mic, but I started doing, the feathering technique in her hair and all of the blending, and it was just so smooth, and it was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And then by the time that I finished it, I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted this to be. I'm like genuinely proud of this, which it has been a while since I have been proud, like super proud of an illustration this Inktober. It's been about, I want to say like maybe 10 or so illustrations since I've been super, super happy with something. I think the last one that I can remember really, really liking was the deer girl, which is quite some time, and that's just from my memory. I'm sure there's one in between there somewhere that I really liked, but this one like was the one that I can genuinely sit down and say, I really love how this turned out, and I hope you guys do too, because that is the last illustration for this batch. Obviously there's only like 3 days left of Inktober. 27, 22. Wait, how did I'm off by a day. What? Wait a minute. Oh, day 28. It's day 28, not 27. Y'all. Anyway, so there are 3 days left of Inktober, which is insanity. I'm also very excited for the last 3 because they are very simple, very in my comfort zone, but also just kind of cute. I like how all of them turned out, that I can remember. I can only remember 2 of them, so one of them might surprise us. But for the most part, I am excited about those. I hope you guys are too. Like I mentioned in the last video, I will be doing 1 video a month this November, so I actually decided to save my spicy rant until January because some of the videos for November are already finished and need to go up, because otherwise once I change the editing up a little bit, they're going to be pretty out of place. And also just because the rant, I think, has a kind of like new year, new me vibe. Not new me per se, but like if you behave the way that I'm about to speak about in that video, you can change yourself this year. So that's definitely something that I think I'm gonna save for January, just to make sure that the videos from November go out. Also, since I am gonna probably be doing only 1 video this December, definitely tell me what you guys want to see for that 1 video, because I'm not 100% sure. I want it to be sort of holidays related, but also like maybe not. I don't really know, but if there's something that you guys really, really want me to do in December, for sure let me know, because I really want to do that. So yeah. Anyway, Sorry for rambling. Like I said, I hope you guys like this illustration. I hope you guys are excited for the last three and for what's coming in November and then in January because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff then I'm super hype about. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for apologizing for rambling for the third time in a row after rambling. I also want to give a big shout out to my patrons, Elise Thompson, Duran, Mandy, Schleeps, and Puppy Paws. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for continuing to support me every single month. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the Patreon little things, behind the scenes bits, and regular tier rewards for this month. There's going to be so much more in the new year. Hopefully, maybe like a little bit more behind the scenes content, but like kind of different to what we're doing. But yeah, that's it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.